Ken, just on your opponent tonight, the Dallas Stars, they obviously picked up a win last night in Calgary, but in the last 14 games, they've allowed just a shade over 1.5 goals against. What's allowed them to be so successful in that regard?
They're the best reload team in the West. Their forwards, them and Vegas do the best job of the forwards working for the defensemen. There's no gap. So you're under constant pressure from the backside all the time, and if you're not prepared to play simple North game, they eat you up. And they did it so well in Winnipeg, frustrated them. Same in Calgary. There's no gap. And when you play with no gap and you're willing to play like that, and you got the forwards that are willing to work like that, it's a hard team to play against, and then you have to have the right mindset. And they've discouraged a lot of teams because of that. Their forwards really work for their D.
Ken, if you could just assess Jujhar Khaira ahead of tonight's game.
Well, he passed the test today, so this was an optional skate. He took part full, and if he goes through the practice tomorrow, then he'll be cleared. So if he's able to get through practice as a full-time participant tomorrow, then he'll be good to go. So that's our hope right now.
Ken, looking at your blue line from Nurse and Larson and Russell, specifically those guys, and Klefbom, your top four. You talked earlier about, trying to go up the middle more and not ringing around the boards. The last few games, there hasn't been as much of it. Has there been more of an emphasis to try to use the middle lately, or are they just getting comfortable using the middle lately because they haven't used the boards as much in the last few games anyway?
Well, I think one of the things that we do every day is we do a series of drills that's constant pressure drills. I just think they're used to the pressure, and a lot of it starts at practice. We have done a combination of the same 3 drills every time to try to quicken the decision making and not eliminate the panic, basically. And they're getting better. They're quite frankly getting a lot better. But it's a lot of times the stuff you do at practice leads to that. So we haven't done an exit drill without putting unbelievable pressure on people, so that it seems a little bit slower during the games. But I think a lot of it sits on the center too. We've got more patience in there now that they're prepared to even stop and stay there and help. But I said this before, you can't exit if you're afraid to use the middle of the ice, because the boards get slammed. You watch tonight, we're going to get slammed on the walls all the time, and you're going to have to use the middle of the rink sooner or later, and we're getting better and better at it, quite frankly. I think the other thing is, with Sekera back in, his calmness it reflects on everybody else. I think everybody else is a lot calmer because of it, because he shows composure, and I think you see it in Matt's game, you see it in other younger guys' games, and we're getting better.
Ken, it's Fan Appreciation Night tonight. What do you appreciate most about Oilers fans?
About the fans, or about what do I appreciate the most, period?
The fans.
Well, I think this is a unique experience coaching in Canada. And hockey in the United States, in most cities, is a sport. Here it's a way of life. And everybody, I live in a complex where there's a lot of season ticket holders, and there's 2 or 3 that I run into all the time, and they take second jobs so they can buy tickets to Oiler games, and that's their passion. So they work extra hours just so they can be Oiler fans. And I think after a while, you really learn to appreciate that. And it's a way of life, and it's an important part of this community. And the longer you live here and the longer you stay here, the more you find out about that stuff. And I find that unbelievable. And people know it's a long winter here at times, but their recreation and their community is the Oilers. And you really learn that after living here. It's a big deal here, a real big deal.
This is a bit off topic, but I just want.
Not surprising coming from you, Reed.
Thank you. The head coach of the Arizona Cardinals is introducing cell phone breaks into meetings for his players. I'm just wondering how you have dealt yourself with the introduction of cell phones into dressing rooms, into players' lives over the years, if it's ever been an obstacle or distraction you've had to make some rules about.
Well, the alarming article for me was the NBA article. And I don't know if anybody saw it, but it was a long article about what the depression that's taking place in that sport and the social depression. I think it's a red flag. We have separation in hockey, but it's a concern for me. And I mean, that's the part that you're old school. When you go for dinner as a group and everybody's heads are down or everybody reacts when the phone rings, I've always felt like we're missing the boat of what it's like to be on a team. To me, that's the community and the discussions and the debates that go on when you're out together. And when I read the NBA article, it was a major red flag for me because I can see that, you can see that everywhere. And then when you start to talk to players and on purpose by design, there's no social activity on the non-game days, long term you get worried about that stuff because we're just going to become isolationists. And so am I concerned about it? Yes. And reading that article, I even got more concerned. So I don't know where it's going to go, and I don't know. I like the fact that guys have put in time constraints. I like the fact that athletes are coming out and saying they're restricting themselves to 90 minutes. I think it's great.
Ken, Sagan and Ben, they both can play center, they both can play the wing. What's more dangerous, Sagan's at center or on the wing? And
When they play on separate lines and they both play in the middle, that's the hardest to play against.
okay, well, when
Because,
same line, doesn't matter?
well, it's easier to focus when they're on the same line, but when they're separated and when both guys play center, that's really hard for the opposition because they can dominate you, and that's the worst case scenario for another coach.
What kind of junior goalie was Darryl Ray?
What type of junior goalie he was? He was funny. I remember when I got introduced, he said, I don't know what type of coach he is, but I know we're going to eat well. So he was funny. There was leaky and then there was another level, and he was somewhere in between there, but he was really funny. So thanks.